In 2006, I was a college student at ASU. I lived in an off-campus apartment on the ground floor, and it was a block off a major street here in Phoenix called Baseline. These details are important. In the summer of 2006, Phoenix, Arizona was plagued by two serial killers. One was the Phoenix shooter, who ended up being a team of two guys randomly shooting people, and the other was the Baseline killer, a rapist and murderer. Having two serial killers put the entire city on edge, and everyone was talking about it. I even saw articles in Time and Newsweek about the situation. So, the fall 2006 semester had just started. Now, you may have heard this, but Phoenix is hot in August. It would get stuffy in my apartment, so I leave the window cracked a little because the morning air is nice. The blinds provided visual cover. Anyways, one morning, a strange sound woke me up. It was the crack of dawn, about 4:45 a.m., and the sun was just barely coming up. It was the sound of someone lightly tapping on the window, and it seemed intentional. In my tired state, I figured it could be a bird, or some branches, or something trivial. Tap, tap, tap. Silence. After about 90 seconds of nothing, the tapping returned, and it was absolutely purposeful. I was positive it was a human producing this noise. I thought it was my boyfriend, who thought it was cute to try and scare me sometimes. I decided I'd be a bit of a brat and make him wait, but I was also getting really angry. How dare he pull a prank while I'm trying to sleep? This is just like him. I'm going to give him a piece of my mind about disturbing my sleep like this. Tap, tap, tap. At a certain point, I got up to get a glass of water, still being in the mindset of wanting to annoy my stupid boyfriend, but I saw some movement through the slit in the blinds, and I marched over and yanked the blind so I could see. Definitely not my boyfriend. I said, very loudly, "What the fuck?" He sort of seemed taken aback by my anger, but only slightly. The man I saw will be with me forever. Or more specifically, his eyes, and the feeling they gave me, were insanely creepy. Honestly, words can't do justice to how terrifying his eyes were. They looked like black orbs with no whites in them. Absolutely predatory. When I see pictures of Ted Bundy or Charles Manson, that's exactly what he looked like. Even if you saw a picture of how they looked, it's different when you experience it in person. It totally floored me. Something about this man was profoundly wrong. He was crouched down, like an umpire. He had on dark pants, a dark purple shirt, and a dark Nike hat. He had dark skin. I thought he was Hispanic, but later I found out he was a light-skinned black guy. Anyway, after I yelled at him, he whispers to me, "Can I talk to you?" If you want to know how insanely creepy that is to hear, just whisper that sentence out loud to yourself right now. It still sends chills down my spine when I think of how that sounded. His hand subtly moved towards his waist. I later learned he would blitz attack his victims, and he probably had a gun. All that separated us was a mesh screen. Now, this is about a 3-second interaction at this point. For some reason, I thought of Ted Bundy and how he'd pretend to be crippled to target his victims. I thought of my mom, and telling me not to be nice to strangers. Don't be afraid to be a bitch. My thinking wasn't as calculated as all that, but it was more than nano-processing of how to deal with the situation. So, when he whispered that, I started yelling at him, "Hell no! Get the fuck out of here, douchebag!" I shut the window angrily, and I locked it. I can't overemphasize how incredibly irritated I was that this person had the audacity to disturb my precious sleep. I laid back down and wondered if I'd been too mean. What if he needed help? But that didn't really make any sense. Why would he be tapping and whispering if he was truly in trouble? I decided that he was a creep after all. I was too annoyed to go back to sleep, but I sort of laid back down. I told my roommate about an hour later, and she sort of jokingly asked if it could have been the baseline killer. And when she said that, my heart sank. His face looked exactly like it did in the police sketches that were on billboards everywhere. The only problem is that those billboards showed him with dreads, and the man at my window had no dreads. Apparently, he was some sort of disguise artist who'd wear wigs. Updating the police sketch would have been a nice move, but of course they didn't. I called the Phoenix police, and the detective I talked to agreed that it did sound like his MO. The suspect would say something to throw off his target, and then he'd blitz attack. The detective said that my angry response probably made me seem like too much of a hassle, and he moved on. The only problem was, I thought the guy looked Hispanic, and the detective said that many witnesses described him as black. I thought they might want to come out and try for samples or surveillance video or something, but I didn't hear back from the detective. My parents freaked out. They got us knives and pepper spray and put up signs. We learned that another tenant had complained that same morning. I never learned the details, but this idiot was apparently going around the damn complex trying to find a target. The stupid apartment wouldn't let us out of our lease, so we moved to a second floor apartment right above our old unit. Then, on September 4th, 2006, they arrested Mark Godot. I think that the detective didn't call me back because they were days away from arresting him. When I saw his mugshot, I was sick, but also relieved. He was absolutely the guy outside my window. To me, he looked like he could be Hispanic. You can judge for yourself if you Google it. He's on death row in Arizona now. His wife tried to mount some campaign to show that the police were framing him or something. On a personal level, it certainly would make for an interesting coincidence if this poor innocent man who they framed was also whispering like a creep and tapping on my window. The only cool thing about this story is that I had a really bad eating disorder at the time, and about 8 months after this happened, I got in solid recovery. I never would have experienced how wonderful life could be if the slightest thing would have changed that morning in 2006. I can't think of something more scary than a serial killer tapping on your window. That actually happened to me, and if it happens to you, just scare them right back. Don't be afraid to be downright rude to someone who's injecting themselves into your space. It could save your life if you're not afraid to throw your weight around and tell someone off. Trust yourself. You can still be a kind and generous person and still tell someone to fuck off. This happened back while I was in college a couple years ago. Me and my roommate moved into a beautiful apartment our junior year of college. Our parents made it extremely clear that two small females living alone together was not ideal for some of the shadier neighborhoods close to our college. We attended a college in our state capital, so we were in a city environment and had certain criteria we had to meet in order for us to live there and for them to co-sign our leases. Lit sidewalks, keyed entry into the apartment building, a lit parking lot, X amount of blocks from campus, etc. So, we finally found one that fit our parents' criteria. Our apartment building had a keyed entry for both the front of the building and the back gate that led to the fire escape. Our apartment was an end unit, so there was 2 deadbolt locks on it. We loved our apartment. We felt safe. We had fun, truly living the college experience. And then, my roommate's boyfriend started slowly moving his things into the apartment and staying there way more often than he should. I finally tell my roommate if he wants to stay here and use the water, electric, and food I help pay for, and then he needs to pay for it too, including our rent. I tell her a 3-way split, or I'm paying only my rent, and he can pay the entire electric, water, and trash bill. I think I'm being pretty fair, and even though her boyfriend doesn't have a job, that's not my problem. I work and go to college. I don't want to work at McDonald's. Yes, he actually said that. Excuse is completely garbage. If you want a place to stay, then to the Golden Arches you should go. So, instead, my roommate starts sneaking him in really late at night after I go to sleep, and he leaves on the days I'm home. While I'm in class, he's there, and then he leaves before I come back. My schedule is extremely routine. Well, he can't have a key, so if my roommate is in class or at work, how's he getting in? He can't take my roommate's key because if he decides to leave halfway through the day, how will she get her key back? All good questions. The solution they come up with is to leave the back door unlocked that leads to the fire escape, and then he can jump the fence at the bottom to get back on the fire escape when he's ready to come back. Or stick a rock in between the door, whatever works for him. So, I'm off work and school one Thursday morning, and I decide I'm going to sleep in as long as I possibly can. My roommate and her boyfriend have already left for the day, so naturally, they leave the door unlocked. I'm asleep like a pretty princess. It's about 10 in the morning, and when I hear the back door open to the apartment, I come to just enough to recognize the noise, realize it's my roommate or her boyfriend, and brush it off and go try to drift back off. All of a sudden, I start hearing someone creep through the apartment. It definitely doesn't sound like casual walking. It is clearly someone stepping slowly and quietly through the apartment. The door to my room is ajar just a sliver, but I don't see anything out the door, and I'm honestly too tired to get up and look. A couple minutes pass, and I figure that my roommate or her boyfriend are just being weirdos, and I fall back to sleep. I can't be sure how much time passes before I open my eyes, but it can't be too long. I wake up to my door opening. My back is to the door, and I'm facing the opposing wall. I slowly start to turn over to see why my roommate or her boyfriend would dare wake me from my slumber. And there he is. A burglar. In my room. Next to the bed I'm currently lying in. A 6-foot-tall, 250-pound minimum burglar. Unplugging my TV. About 5 feet from where I am. I immediately pretend I'm just shifting positions in my sleep, and continue to roll over with my eyes as shut as I can make them seem, still open enough to watch what was going on. He hears me shuffling as I turn over, stops, looks dead at me, and luckily doesn't realize that my eyes are open just a tiny bit. He goes back to unplugging my TV and my DVD player, and shoves it into a bag he's brought, and steals my change jar, and casually starts walking out the front door to my apartment, like he came in for a cup of fucking tea or something. After I hear the door shut, I immediately spring out of bed, grab my phone, and start dialing 911, all while locking the back and front doors. The dispatcher is trying to calm me down, and at this point, I'm hysterical. I can't even catch my breath to tell her okay. Luckily, I told her my address before I started hyperventilating. I want to take a second to commend the police department, both city and college, because they were there in less than 3 minutes. She tells me the cops are there, but they need me to go downstairs to let them in the building because they don't have a key to the front of the building. I'm so afraid to open the door to my apartment, or even look down the hallway. I'm about to walk to the front door and extend my arm out to the handle when I hear, "Ma'am, it's the police." As if I weren't scared enough already. They yell through the door. I'm paranoid because the dispatcher just told me they couldn't get in and didn't realize that someone probably let them in downstairs. I asked the dispatcher to confirm that the people at my door are actually police officers. She tells me that they are. I open the front door and I collapse right there. My legs completely turn into jello and I just hit the floor. I blacked out for a brief period of time, but they held me up and set me down on the couch. There's at least 10 officers in my apartment, from both the city and college departments. When I look outside the living room window to the street below, there are 5 or 6 cop cars blocking the street. I later found out they were doing a perimeter search around the immediate area. I'm being bombarded with questions now. I have to try to find out what's missing besides the stuff in my room. I'm crying, I'm shaking. This is not at all how I saw my day off going. I tell them my roommate left the back door open for her boyfriend, and they go and inspect the back door. The next thing I know, my roommate and her boyfriend walk in, and they both have the most dumbfounded looks on both of their faces. At this point, there's a detective talking to me, and I'm giving my statement, giving a description of the burglar, the stuff missing, looking at mugshots, etc. I immediately stop talking to the detective, look up at the both of them, and blurt out, "Someone robbed us while I was asleep. He came into my room." My roommate looks me dead in the face and says, "Oh my God, is any of my stuff gone? That's what you're asking me right now? If your replaceable shit is missing? What a bitch." Two officers take her and her boyfriend aside and talk to them while I'm finishing up with the detective. I call my boyfriend and he comes over to help me pack my stuff to stay over at his house for a couple of days, which turned into staying until my lease at the place ended around 4 months. After failing to recognize any suspects in the lineup, the cops slowly start leaving. After they all leave, I call my parents to tell them what happened, gather my things, and head over to my boyfriend's house. My roommate and her boyfriend never once apologized, not for leaving the door unlocked, not just a general "I'm sorry this happened to you." They never asked me if I was okay, if I wanted to talk, anything. The day my lease ended was the best day of that entire year. I couldn't wait to get away from my roommate, her boyfriend, in that apartment. They never found the guy who robbed me. I didn't even care about the materialistic things. He robbed me of my safety and security, and it took a good amount of counseling to get that back. I'm also thankful that he didn't try to attack me that morning. My friendship with my roommate was tarnished. I haven't spoken to her since. To this day, I don't sleep with my back to the door, and I always have a knife under my mattress. I went to a college in a town with a big university where I attended a second, smaller school with about 5,000 students in a technical college. So, there were a lot of young people around all the time. For context, I'm a 5'11", slightly overweight female with broad shoulders. So, people don't usually mess with me, but I do get the occasional creeper that says, "I'm a tall, cool glass of water," or "dem legs," or other body parts. I lived a few blocks from campus, so it was not uncommon for me to walk to and from class. However, one night, I had met with a group for a class project, and we were later than I thought we would be, so I had to walk alone around 10 p.m. in the dark. I was fine on campus, but a block after leaving, I got a gut feeling that something was wrong. I knew there was someone following me, and most of the town was shut down. It was a small town in the Midwest. Everything closes at 9 p.m. during the week. A pizza place was open, but I had just passed it. I look ahead, and there are two girls walking ahead with the pizza and carrying it back to their apartment or whatever. I decided better to embarrass myself than to be a victim. I yell, "Hey friends, wait up!" These girls were total strangers, and they turned around, expecting to find a friend of theirs. Instead, what they saw was a strange girl flagging them down, and behind her, a guy in a hoodie who had stopped walking. They both got gut feelings that something wasn't right and decided to play along. "Hey girl, we're on our way to Brandon's party. You want to walk with us?" I caught up to them and pretended I need to get something out of my bag, so we stepped to the side, and they were both giving me a freaked out look. At that moment, the hooded man passed us with this look of hatred. His eyes burned into mine, and he continued walking. I ended up going to the party with my new friends. Later that night, we got a campus alert message that a student had been attacked a few blocks off campus, and the description matched the guy that was following me. We contacted police, and the guy was eventually caught. I still talk to those girls occasionally, though we live in different parts of the country now. But I'm glad that I never got to meet that man. This happened when I was in college. I lived in Isla Vista, the student community at UCSB, notorious for being a party school. It fully lived up to its reputation. I like to party, but holy shit, these people were off the wall. As such, there were a lot of people who put themselves in dangerous situations, drinking to excess, not being careful, not locking doors, etc. It had a very isolated and insular vibe, and anyone who was hanging around who wasn't college aged immediately looked out of place and strange. One night, after having a few drinks, I came home to my small house where I lived with two other girls, probably around 2:30 a.m. We were all serious students. I was probably the least serious actually, and when we partied, it was not your typical UCSB mega rager, more like a small get-together with friends. We would often have a few people spend the night, asleep on our furniture or in our beds as the case may be. That night, my roommates had a few people over who I didn't know, and I saw when I returned home that one of them had opted to sleep on the couch. From the shadow that I saw there, I didn't turn on the light so I wouldn't wake anyone up. But as I was passing the couch to enter my bedroom, I noticed that the figure was lying very stiff. He just had this weird energy to him. He was lying down, but it was like he was putting all of his energy into lying as still and rigid as possible. I paused, and the guy quickly jerked his head to face me, without moving his limbs, so quickly that it startled me. I could see his wide open eyes glinting in the dark. Figuring that I'd startled him, or that he was drunk, or maybe on some kind of stimulant, not able to sleep, I just hurried past into my bedroom and locked the door. The dude made me nervous, and I wasn't taking any chances. I soon fell asleep. At 4:30 a.m., I woke up, and there was a strange sound at the door, almost like somebody was drumming their fingers against the wood, very quietly. I lay still and listened. There were more quiet sounds, like someone scratching the door with their fingers, which got louder and louder until it was clear that he was using both hands and scratching as fast and as hard as possible. It created an extremely loud and intimidating sound that filled me with fear. I got my cell phone and texted my roommate because I was afraid to make a sound. "Your friend is freaking me out. Is he coked up? Can you talk to him? He's banging and scratching on my door." She didn't text me back, probably because she was asleep. I texted my other roommate to the same effect, covering all my bases. Keep in mind that the scratching has been going on at this point for a couple of minutes. I have no idea how he could have sustained it. Scratching a wooden door with your fingernails can't feel good. He also grabbed at the knob and jiggled it super forcefully. Because neither of them answered, I decided to call and really wake them up, though I was scared to make a sound. I know it sounds stupid, but there was something seriously horrifying about being teased like this through the door. I knew that he was trying to terrify me. I felt like a little kid, but I could tell this guy was fucked up on something, and maybe the police needed to be called, and I wanted to loop my roommates in since it was one of their friends. The scratching stopped abruptly, and I called my roommate, who answered sleepily. "Yo, your friend is messed up. Can you please deal with it? Do we need to call the cops? He's seriously scaring me. He was scratching at my bedroom door. Really fucking weird." She didn't say anything for several seconds, and when she did speak, her voice had no sleepiness in it at all. "What friend?" she said. "That fucking guy that was sleeping on the couch," I said. She was quiet again. "We didn't have any guys over," she said. "Call the police." My adrenaline surged, and I told her to please lock the bedroom door as quickly as possible. I realized that I hadn't heard scratching in a while, and I had no clue where the dude had gone. Suddenly, I heard a loud banging in the other end of the house, where my roommates, Lauren and Monica, shared a bedroom. The bangs were followed by the sound of them screaming in fear. I quickly dialed the police, as this maniac proceeded to bang against the luckily locked bedroom door of my two roommates as they screamed. The heaviness of the blows left no doubt that he was actually trying to break the door down. I told the 911 operator the situation, and she dispatched 2 squad cars. The police in Isla Vista are generally used to peeling drunks off the sidewalk and breaking up brawling frat bros. This was really serious and strange, and I think the dispatcher got the sense from my tone how terrified I was, and she stayed on the phone with me. At one point, the banging stopped, and everything was quiet for a while. I talked with the dispatcher and suddenly looked down to see that this guy had slipped his fingers through the 1-inch gap between the door and the floor and was just kind of wiggling them around, making this weird growling sound. I screamed and backed away, which is my biggest regret about the situation, since when I look back, it would have been so awesome to just stomp the shit out of those fingers and hear the guy howl in pain. And when the cops rolled up, I heard running and the sound of our sliding glass door opening and closing. And then he was gone. The cops never caught him. He had broken in through our side door by jimmying the lock somehow. My door was covered in what turned out to be huge gashes he'd made using a pair of scissors, which he discarded on the ground before he left. What terrifies me most about this was that I walked right past him. I looked him right in the face. I realize now that he was not trying to sleep or on drugs, but was lying so stiff like that because he was hiding. He probably heard me open the door and freaked out because he hadn't realized there was another girl living there, and tried to blend into the couch in the darkness.